All right. So welcome everybody to our third webinar of our fall series. For this one, we'll be talking about financial considerations. We definitely recognize that college is expensive and daunting for all students. And so hopefully we can kind of help give you some resources to help chip away at the cost. So just a link here, which you can click when we send out the webinar slides to the rest of our webinar series. We do hope you check that out and register for those. We will have Q&A time throughout this whole webinar, so feel free to keep your questions for those times. If you tend to forget your questions, you can always put them in the chat and we can come back to them later. And then you can always send us emails if you remember something you wanted to know in like 3, 4, 5 days, 2 years, whatever. We're always around. Right after the webinar, a screen will pop up on your Google Chrome or Safari, whatever internet browser you're using, that will give you a link to a survey. The survey takes like a minute or less, and we'd really love for you to fill that out just to give us feedback on how we're doing. And then lastly, just another reminder, this recording will be sent out, and we'll also send out lots of resources that are in this PowerPoint, but also lots of resources that are additional to that. So hopefully those are all there to kind of help you braid together different supports and make college a little bit more affordable for you and your family. All right, so just a brief overview of who we are as an organization. So IN is a nonprofit in the state of Colorado, and we work to create inclusive college programs that focus on these 4 in bold at the bottom pillars: academic support, social development, career advancement, and independence, specifically for students with intellectual disabilities. As an organization, we kind of fall under these 4 pillars on the right: education, outreach, expanding new programs, and then reporting on outcomes of students. So we do not provide the services to students. That's up to the colleges and the programs themselves. We're just here as support for those students and those programs and their families. So hopefully that's what brings you here today. Just kind of an overview of our staff. We're a very small but mighty team. So Tracy, our executive director. I'm Elise, I'm the program coordinator. I'll let Shanna introduce herself.
Oh, I'm Shanna Lang. I work with our community engagement.
Awesome. And we just want you to know that we are hopefully very reachable, and we love hearing from families. So our contact information is there. Please don't hesitate to use it. And then today, we are really lucky to have a guest presenter from the Colorado Office of Employment First. Melanie, I'll give you time to introduce yourself if you'd like.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me, first of all. And yeah, I'm with the Colorado Office of Employment First. My specialty area, I guess you could say, is in benefits counseling. So how benefit programs interact with employment and going to school, and how there's some ways to save through benefit programs for school. I'll talk about all of that in my part. But yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. So it's nice to meet you guys too.
Awesome. Thanks, Melanie. All right. And then just quickly go through our objectives. So I'll go through the options for college for students with ID, specifically here in Colorado. Then we'll kind of talk about how do you pay for that, or at least what are some options of how to pay for that, knowing that that can be really overwhelming sometimes. And then Melanie, as she said, we'll talk about benefits counseling, how to get started with that, and all the ways that that can help chip away at the cost of college as well. All right, so here's our kind of brief overview of what's going on in Colorado. I'm not going to go through this whole thing. What I really want you to just sort of notice is that nationally, inclusive college programs didn't start until 2008, not until 2016 here in Colorado. We were one of the last of 3 states to establish programs, so we were pretty considerably late to the game. And so if you're kind of wondering, why didn't you know about these programs when your students were younger, and why haven't you had all this time to save like maybe you have for other kids? Unfortunately, that's why. So hopefully we can kind of help make that a little bit easier, although we do know that that's a challenge for sure. All right, so very briefly, what is inclusive higher education? If you're here, you probably already know, but just to give a brief overview again. So these are programs specifically for students with intellectual disabilities. There's an alternative admissions pathway that is different than the pathway for more traditional students. They're fully inclusive, fully normative. These are not special education classes on college campuses. These are classes just like any other student takes on a college campus. They just have more support with them. Students ideally will take courses that align with their career goal. If they don't have a career goal yet, they have opportunities for career exploration to hopefully help kind of figure that out along the way. They have both accommodations and modifications. Traditional college students would only have accommodations. So there's a little bit more support there, like I said. They get a certificate credential. They don't get a degree. We'll talk about kind of what that means in a few slides. But it is important to know that that certificate is still weighty, it's meaningful, it's valuable. It really shows that students have engaged with their academic course load in a really valuable and important way, and they have something to show for it. And so that's really exciting. And then finally, they get to participate in career readiness, in independent living, lots of things outside of academics, like most students do. When they go to college, they get more than just education out of it, and that's really exciting. So specifically, they focus on 4 domains. They get staff support, they get peer mentor support, lots of supports all around campus to kind of help with these 4 things. So academically, of course, they have supports in classes with peer mentors, professors, all those kinds of things. Socially, we have students joining fraternities and sororities and intramural sports and all kinds of clubs and just really living very, full social lives on campus. Career-wise, we have a progression of on-campus internships, off-campus internships, jobs, all kinds of things to kind of help students build their vocational skills. And then independence. A lot of students live off campus, so they can kind of flex their independent muscles there. Even for students who still live at home, they have classes in life skills and things like budgeting and all sorts of important, just kind of adult independent skills. So it's really exciting that we see students in our programs showing really broad growth across all 4 of these areas. It's not just academics. And so it's just kind of, I think, worth taking perspective. When you look at the cost of college and really thinking about, this is everything that you're paying for. And so hopefully you really get a large return on investment, and your student shows a lot of kinds of growth. And that's really fun for us to watch in our graduates. All right, so I'm going to go through what our 4 programs are that currently exist in Colorado. The first one is called Elevate at Arapahoe Community College. That's in Littleton, Colorado. It's a commuter campus, so there's no on-campus living, and that is traditionally a 3-year program. Then we have the Office of Inclusive Services. That is at the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, in Colorado Springs, Colorado. They have on-campus living in apartments, so they're pretty fancy, pretty snazzy. They definitely live a lot nicer than I did when I was in college. And that's traditionally a 4-year program. Then we have the Go On and Learn program, or GOAL, at the University of Northern Colorado. That's in Greeley. It's traditionally a 4-year program as well. And they offer on-campus living more in your traditional dorm, what I experienced, what most people I know experienced. And then finally, our newest program is Regis University. It's called the Global Inclusive Program. That's in Denver. They also have on-campus living. I believe that's in dorms. And they have a little bit of a shorter track at 1 to 2 years. So those are the 4 programs that currently exist in Colorado. There's over 300 nationally, but we are just going to talk about Colorado today. And then all of these programs have earned what's called CTP status. So that stands for Comprehensive Transition and Post-Secondary Program. Basically, that means that they're eligible for federal student financial aid, which is really exciting. And I'll talk about that in a few more slides. And then the other thing that these 4 programs have is that they all grant students the Comprehensive Higher Education Certificate. So like I said earlier, that's a really meaningful outcome. It shows weightiness, it shows depth to students' learning. And it also means that students can transfer their learning across any one of these 4 programs. So we've had students start, for example, at Arapahoe Community College, and then they wanted to live on campus. So then maybe they transferred all their credits to one of the other programs that allowed them to do so. So that's really exciting. And then we're really stoked to announce that next fall, we're going to have 2 more programs in Colorado. One of them is at Colorado State in Fort Collins. So that is going to be an agricultural, mostly focus, which is really exciting. I think they plan to have on-campus living, but details specifically on that program will be announced later. And then the next program to be established next fall is the Inclusive Higher Education Solutions Program. That's at Metropolitan State University. That's in downtown Denver. They don't plan to have on-campus living, and like the Rand Scholars Program, they will be announcing more program details soon. And then in 2 falls in 2025, we're hoping to have 1 more rural school and 1 more community college in the state of Colorado. So we're hoping in the next 2 years, we'll have at least 8, if not more, programs for students with ID across Colorado so that we can continue serving as many as possible. And then sometimes people ask, what are the outcomes of college for our students with intellectual disabilities? And I think this is important to put in here, especially when thinking about the financial aspect, just to kind of frame it in terms of a return on investment. College is an option to all students, and it's really exciting to see specifically kind of what the growth is for students with intellectual disabilities. So we're seeing students attain and maintain competitive integrated employment in really meaningful jobs. We're seeing a huge increase in job diversity. So students are getting jobs in things like, being paraprofessionals in their school districts and doing photography. And we have a student who's a football coach at a high school and our graduate, lots of kinds of things that are just really, really cool. And students are earning higher wages than they used to, and they have greater independence. Even students who are graduates who still live with their families have a much greater sense of independence than they did before. And that's really exciting. So we're just kind of putting this in here as a reminder that, again, students get all kinds of stuff out of college, and it's really exciting. All right, I'm going to pause there to give a chance to ask any questions about anything I've shared so far.
I just have one quick question, but now I've zoomed in a weird way and now I can't see you, so hang on. I wondered, this is a little off topic, so I'll be quick on this. You all are based in Colorado. Are there organizations like yours in most states? I'm from Washington.
Yeah, so Colorado is mostly unique. I'm not going to say that no one else exists, but definitely very few.
Okay.
And so we partner with a lot of certainly programs and organizations within Colorado, but then we can also do our best to resource out. And what I would really gear you towards is Think College, which is a national resource hub that they do something similar to what we do, but on a much more national scale. And so they can't, speak to as many kind of like the nitty-gritty details as we can. But I would say that's probably your best bet in Washington. Jana, do you have any?
Yeah, and there's a movement to have more regional alliances where there'd be like one, core organization that you go to understand the breadth of inclusive higher ed in one state, because they're also different. So there's work from Think College to establish those. I don't believe that there is one in Washington at this point, but I think there's one coming down the pike. I know that West Coast is kind of looking for that. So
yeah,
great question.
Thanks.
Yeah. Do you know when the details about the program at CSU and Metro are coming out, if they're starting next fall?
Yeah, good question. So I think right now we have contacts with their directors, so I can always, if there's direct interest, I can connect you with them specifically so that you can ask some questions. We're really looking at them opening up their applications like other schools would. So in the spring, there's going to be a lot more like clarity of what students would be applying for and what they'd be receiving. And because of being over all of the programs here in Colorado, we get to really coach them through it. So it's going to look similar to the other schools that we have, but we'll have a bit more clarity as we kind of approach the end of the fall as they're getting their application set up, but I'm happy to connect you with their directors because they're putting boots on the ground right now.
Anything else? Those are great questions. All right, we will have time embedded throughout. So if you have any questions, even if they're about this past section that come up later, don't hesitate to ask as we keep going. All right, so now we're gonna get into why are we all here? How do you pay for inclusive higher education? And I just kind of wanna say right off the bat, everything we present is just gonna be a really general overview. We're just kind of presenting a list of options. Not every option is right for every family. So I do want to encourage you to do more research and really just kind of figure out what's best for you and your financial need. And I know it's hard to say do more research, but again, this is just a specific topic where everybody is just kind of at a different place. So with that, I just sort of want to paint a picture about the financial reality. College is a normative investment. So people pay for it, even for students who don't have ID, and that is expensive for most families. But I also want to remind you, as I've kind of been saying throughout college is really worthwhile. It allows students to gain a financial sort of benefit after college with higher wages, but also more independence, more social skills, all kinds of things that hopefully I've been sharing with you throughout. And then lastly, I recognize most families take a lot of time to save for college, and a lot of families, particularly in Colorado, haven't had all that much time. But again, even nationally, the programs aren't that old. So a lot of families all over haven't had that much time. And so just kind of recognizing that we know that that's hard, and we're here to hopefully make that a little bit easier in whatever way we can. There we go. All right, so generally tuition and fees, I'm only gonna say that this is true for programs in Colorado because I can't speak to the ones elsewhere, but they are the same cost per credit hour as traditional students would pay. But the benefit, or I don't know benefit, but maybe the thing to make it a little bit easier to afford is that you pay for fewer credits because students take fewer credits per semester. So if a traditional student maybe would take 15 credits per semester, our students might take like 6 to 9 credits per semester. So it is overall a less expensive cost just because you're paying for fewer credits. There's an additional program fee for inclusive services. So as I mentioned, they have adults, they also have peer mentors who help modify their course load, who help them in social situations. They typically have a jobs coordinator to help find them internships and vocational experiences. And so all that stuff does cost money. So unfortunately, they vary by school. I can't just say save up this much money, but at least in Colorado, they range anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000 per school year. And just kind of keep basic things in mind that are traditionally true of college. Traditionally, community colleges are cheaper than four-year public universities. Four-year public universities are traditionally cheaper than private universities. And here in Colorado, we have schools that represent all of those kind of categories. And so that also applies to the program fees as well, generally speaking. And then when students live on campus, they do pay room and board, and that's the same as all other students would pay on campus. Typically, there's not other fees for that. And then we just kind of want to remind you, every school kind of has their own payment cost situation. So please check out their individual websites, and they're linked later on in this presentation. And then they also change every year, unfortunately. And then sort of the last thing, just to remind you, we don't serve students, so we don't receive any tuition money from the students. That all goes through the bursar's office. We don't really handle any of the specific payment information itself. All right, so now we're going to get into some resources. So students in inclusive higher education programs are eligible for 3 kinds of federal financial aid. One are Pell Grants, the second is the Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, and the third are work-study programs. These are all things that you do not have to repay. So grants are not loans, it's just money that in this case, federal government gives you, and that goes right to tuition. They don't have to be repaid. Federal work-study, those are jobs that students have on campus, and so that's a salary for them, and they can use that to pay their tuition. The thing I do want to point out is because students in these programs receive certificates, they don't receive degrees. Unfortunately, they're not eligible for federal loans, but they are still eligible for these other federal financial aid avenues. So just keep that in the back of your mind. And then the way to access federal financial aid is, oh gosh, there we go, through the FAFSA, which is a term you've probably heard. That stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. All families, we really encourage all families to fill out the FAFSA. The amounts do change every year. They vary from family to family, depending on what school your student goes to, all kinds of things. But you do have to fill it out every year again to kind of update the federal government on your family's changing needs and situations and things like that. And then we just kind of want to cover some misconceptions. We commonly hear families say things like, I shouldn't fill out the FAFSA because my family doesn't have financial need. Or we also hear people say things like, it's really long, we're not going to get anything out of it, it's not worth the effort. And we really want to debunk that. Even if you only get $100 out of it or $500 out of it or something that maybe seems small, in the grand scheme of college, every dollar really does count. And every year we hear families surprised at how much they actually qualified for. So we do want to remind you that it's not going to hurt you. It's not going to be held against you or your student in any way. We do encourage you to kind of stick through that process. We know it's long and lengthy, but hopefully it is worth it for your family. And then I did link here, if you when you get these slides, click that picture on the right. It's a whole document on federal financial aid. It's more than just the few slides I went over. So hopefully that'll link you to some more resources as well. Next, at least in Colorado, we encourage you to talk to the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation, or DVR. That can help pay for a portion of tuition. You really need to get in touch with a benefits counselor early, or a DVR counselor early. You need to let them know that inclusive higher education is one of your students' goals to help reach their career goals, or I should say pathways to help reach their career goals. And then, kind of like all other forms of funding, students can lose it if they're not doing well in school. So they will have to maintain good grades, showing that they're making adequate progress. And that is individualized, like most things, based on your family's need. And then in Colorado, you can connect with a counselor at this link that goes to their interest and referral form, which is kind of like your foot in the door. But if you want to visit their website, you can go ahead and click that photo on the right as well. And then communities.
Sorry, in Colorado, if you wanted to go to school out of state, could you use DVR funds for that?
Shanna, do you know that?
That's a good question. I'm pretty sure they would, the DVR counselor, and maybe Melanie, you can address this better. The DVR counselor would have to connect with the DVR office and transferable.
Yeah, so DVR can approve out of state.
Melanie, do you agree?
Oh.
I don't know.
Yeah, sorry. And I don't know if it's my internet connection, but you're pretty choppy. So if hopefully I'm coming through. I am. Okay, great. Yeah, so DVR can pay for an individual to go out of state, but it's going to take approval at higher levels than the DVR counselor. And then you still have to show that if a person wants to go to Yale University, if they have a program, then and the cost is significantly more. There has to be some justifications that'll be shown there. So it can happen, but it would take additional approvals. But it doesn't hurt to ask, and especially if a school has the career path that you want to pursue. If someone wants to do marine biology, then Colorado, I don't know, but Colorado programs may not have something like that. So definitely worth the effort if that's the desire.
And I have a question. Are there separate counselors within DVR that are working on these kinds of funds? Or if we're already connected with DVR, we can just go to our current connection. And I guess the same thing with DDRC. We're already, like Ella's already in with those programs. I just need to reach out to those people that we already are connected with.
Yes. Yep. Stick with who knows you and who knows your family, and they will tell you if they're not right for whatever need you have, and then they'll connect you further. But if you already have an in, stick with it. Other questions while we're here? All right. So I'm going to go through community-centered boards, or you may know them as CCBs. This is, sorry, Gretchen, a Colorado-specific kind of path, but you may have something similar in Washington, so definitely check it out. So some CCBs offer some kind of funding. We've heard the term self-determination funds have kind of gotten families where they need to go. So try that. Try asking for self-determination funds, or just asking in general, is there funding to help send your student to college? These are most common in CCBs that have higher mill levy funding. So not all can offer this, unfortunately, but it is worth asking. And if you don't know who your CCB is, you can click that link and it sends you to the state page to kind of figure it out per county. All right. So scholarships, and this is a really normative way to pay for college as well. So what I have on this list is a wide variety of scholarships that are more specific to disability, but keep in mind that a lot of scholarships are traditionally available to students, and that those same scholarships are going to be also offered to students in our programs as well. So don't count any scholarships out. So a lot of programs in schools have specific scholarships, definitely talk to your child's high school or school district. A lot of places now have a specific counselor or someone whose job it is to help connect families with scholarships. And a lot of schools themselves have scholarship funds, high schools and school districts. So try that. But a lot of our programs are also coming up with their own scholarship funds. So for example, at UCCS, they have what's called the Nick Harmon Inclusive Scholarship Fund. That's specifically for students who are in the Office of Inclusive Services at UCCS. That's not available to other students on campus. And so there's fewer people kind of going after that pot of money. And most of our programs are starting to have scholarships like that. So it's definitely worth asking. There's also a lot of disability-based scholarships, depending on what disability category your student falls into. You can find a lot more of them if you click this Think College link on the right. One big example is Ruby's Rainbow. That's a big scholarship fund for students with Down syndrome, but they exist for students with all kinds of disabilities. And then there's also general disability funds. So for example, there's the Microsoft Disability Scholarship. This is a big national scholarship fund for any student with a disability who is studying something in the tech field. And so that's something that Microsoft sponsors. And a lot of organizations, like big companies like that, do sponsor scholarships, but also some of them are from like nonprofits and things like that that are also just more like general disability focused. And then we encourage you to check a variety of local organizations. A lot of organizations like, Lions clubs and things like that may offer scholarships. The example we have is the Colorado Springs Down Syndrome Association, and they offer scholarships to college for anyone who lives in El Paso County, which is where Colorado Springs is. So get creative. Again, that list there has a wide variety. But then I also want to encourage you to go to this scholarships mapper. So this is, again, linked here. So when you get these slides, you can click it. You do have to create an account, unfortunately, to use it, or I would show you how now. But basically, you kind of fill in a whole bunch of information about your family, about your student, and they match you to a wide variety of scholarships that you may be eligible for, or your student may be eligible for. And there are scholarships around the country for so many like wide variety of things, like for people who are left-handed, for people who wear glasses, for people who come from divorced families, all kinds of really weird and creative things. And students are eligible for most of those as well. So I encourage you to use that resource for all students. If you have students who don't have an ID, that's a really great resource for them as well.
And I just wanted to point out before we move past these scholarships, especially for those like typical school scholarships, if you wanted to pursue options at your district, a lot of times what we see with special education is there's like these college counselors at the district, but they don't tend to interact with our students in special education. That should not be the case. So I just want to empower you to jump over that line, across that line, and interact with one of the college counselors, because a lot of times those scholarships are applicable to our students, because a lot of scholarships now support certificate earning outcomes, which is what our students are. They're enrolled at the institution. So sometimes we just have to jump over that little barrier and say, hey, these are students in this district going to college. And a lot of times it's just informing them that the student would be enrolled at the institution and is coming out with a certificate. So if you guys if you're navigating that, and if there's any way that we can help advocate, happy to do so. I've found a lot of good success with connecting with those college counselors and letting them know that the students in the special education department are equally deserving of the support that they offer all the other students. So just my encouragement to you.
And is that a case where typically, like if they've moved on to transition services, do they go back to their home high school? And have you seen that home high schools are receptive to students who have been out for over a year? How does that work?
Good question. I think primarily, they still fall under that district when they're in that transition service. So that should still be available to them. Traditionally, I'm going to see way more hands-on support from the college counselor when they're in that junior, senior year, 11th or 12th grade. So I know that's not where you're at right now, but for anybody else that's listening, that's a good time to start those conversations a bit earlier. But I think whoever their case manager is at the transition program should be able to have a connection to somebody at the district level that knows of scholarship resources close by. Good question.
Anything else? Scholarships can be a kind of a trickier one because there are so many and they all have their own, kind of requirements. So happy to answer any other questions anyone has. All right, let us know. All right, so next we're going to chat about savings accounts. This is specific to Colorado ABLE, although I do believe all states have their own ABLE account system. They all operate under different laws though. So this is specifically for Colorado. So Colorado ABLE accounts are available to anybody who has a qualifying disability that began before the age of 26. These are savings accounts that can be used on any disability related expense. So inclusive higher education is one, but there are so many available uses for this money. And so we really encourage people, if you've started a 529 for your family members with an ID, we encourage you to transfer that into an ABLE account. In Colorado, it's a free transfer. And so that will allow you to still spend that money on college, but then if there's anything left over, or you can keep kind of filling it, to use that on lots and lots of things outside of college expenses as well. So it's just a little bit more flexible. And then last year we did a webinar with a representative from Colorado ABLE. So if you're interested in learning much, much more, 90 minutes more of information on ABLE accounts, click that link and you can watch that on your own time. All right, and then lastly, we just kind of want to remind you that it's really normative for students to help pay for their own college expenses. And so a lot of students have work study jobs, as I already mentioned. A lot of students have just other kinds of employment, either on or off campus of a variety of forms. You can also use things like SSI or SSDI, and students are still eligible for private loans. Again, not federal loans, so interest rates may be higher, things like that, but those still are options. And then I did already mention this, but again, it's worth another reminder. Every family is different. Your family may or may not, qualify for one of these methods that we've chatted about. It may not be right for you or your student. So these are just options. We're not saying that everything works for everybody. We're just kind of presenting it all and letting you make those choices for yourself. So with that, what questions do we have?
I think one thing I'd just say is that I think that ABLE account is a really important part of long-term financial planning, whether or not you choose to do college for people with intellectual disabilities. Like, it's a big thing because of the SSDI rules about money, and ABLE is outside of that. So that's such an important thing. The other thing I was thinking about was, at least at the colleges we've talked to, there are often paid internships. So I think when we're thinking about our college placements for our students, making sure we ask whether they're paid internships or unpaid internships is a nice way to kind of know what you're walking into.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really great reminder. Thank you. Any other questions or comments at this time? All right, let us know. We're happy to help. So at this time, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I am going to turn it over to Melanie.
Awesome. I'm going to share screen. All right. So hopefully you guys can see me, and I'm going to put the video panel up too so I can see you all, because it's weird if I can't. All right. So what I'm going to do through this presentation is the slide deck is going to have a lot more information in it than what we're going to cover tonight. But it'll be available to you after. And because what I don't want to have happen is when we start talking about benefits, we start talking about some of these federal programs, we get a lot of government speak in there. It just gets overwhelming. It can become kind of like mushy soup in your head. And so I want to get you the basics tonight, just like Shana and Elise have, and give you places to get started when you're ready to pursue that. So if I fly through a little bit of the slides, don't worry, you're going to get those. And if you have questions, of course, pop those in the chat or just unmute, just like we've been doing so far. So like we've talked, I'm here to talk about, benefits counseling. You've seen my contact information. And so you'll have that going forward from tonight as well. This is what we're talking about. I'm going to talk about benefits counseling. It is a key resource for whether you pursue college or not. It's a key resource. So what is it? What to expect from it? I'm going to go into a little bit more in depth about ABLE accounts because, like Gretchen mentioned, they are incredibly important to improve a person's overall financial well-being over time. How to access benefits counseling. This is specific to Colorado, but for Gretchen, I think you're in Washington, you have access to it too. And so I'll let you know where that falls in these slides, even though it's not on a slide. I'll tell you where you're going to access yours as well. And then we'll talk about a lot of resources around benefits counseling and benefits and work. I'm going to show you a resource that we have here in Colorado called Colorado DB 101, Disability Benefits 101. It's a website. We'll talk about that. And then depending on what we're looking at for time, I'll talk a little bit more about getting connected with our office, or my office, the Colorado Office of Employment first. And then questions, of course, are welcome throughout the whole thing. So let's jump into what I am biased about, and I think is probably the most important resource that I'll talk about this evening, is benefits counseling. Depending on in Colorado, even and throughout the country, there's a few different names for benefits counseling. And it depends on kind of who is funding it, on what it's called. And so it's all different names for the same thing. So here in Colorado, we kind of go between benefits counseling and benefits planning. And in short enough time, it'll be more focused on benefits planning in Colorado due to some work we've done in our state. We've also seen it called work incentive planning. And you'll see that in some other states as well. But it's a direct service. It's something I've been doing for a little over 20 years, where as a benefits counselor, I meet directly with a family or with an individual and talk with them about how their different life choices, like either pursuing employment or pursuing an education, which of course really leads to employment, how those different decisions will impact their benefits. And when we talk about benefits, we're typically talking about federal, state, and local tax funded or privately funded benefit programs. The big ones are probably SSDI and SSI. Those are two Social Security administered programs. We also have food stamps, Medicaid, low-income energy assistance, childcare assistance, rental assistance. It's all these different programs that a person essentially has to help them have their basic needs met, or to help them live independently in their communities. And they have those programs, but they still have the opportunity to pursue their employment goals, including going to college. And so benefits counseling is really the way to have that person be informed about how that kind of all mixes together and how they can do that. So some of the things that you can expect from a benefits counselor is the verification of benefits. Lots of times individuals aren't quite sure what benefits they're on. And so we get that out of the way right away. Let's get everybody on the same page. We can look and see what benefits a person might not be receiving that they should be receiving, get them connected that way. We'll provide long-term support as that need is determined. That, of course, is by each person and what their path looks like. We can help people understand some of those complicated things that come up, those scary letters that Social Security is pretty infamous for. Red flags like, hey, you're going to get an overpayment letter, and this is why, and this is what we need to do about it. Or maybe someone's getting underpaid and they're worried they're going to get that money back and it's going to screw up their SSI, things like that. And then probably most obvious is how work impacts each benefit that the person's on now and into the future. What work incentives, what programs are available to them to best utilize their work, their school, their future goals, how to best make that path or go along that path. And then also how work impacts that overall financial picture. And how does having higher earnings because you've earned that certificate in college, how does that affect your overall financial picture, and what is available to you to be able to do that and not worry about, I'm going to lose my benefits and what if something happens? So we talk about all of that. We also help people understand how to do wage reporting. So many misconceptions around wage reporting, and what kind of records do you want to keep when you're making these different life decisions and going down this career path and down your education path. what do you want to do? And how do you tell your benefit administering organizations what that looks like? So we'll give you instruction on that. And then we make referrals when a person needs them. Maybe that's to Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. Maybe it's I meet with someone in the clinics over at Children's, which is what I do, and they mention they want to go to they want to get a post-secondary education. Then I say, hey, let's talk about the IN program, those types of things. So we make those kind of connections as well. And then ultimately, what the information that we give, hopefully it helps people address the fears and concerns that many people have around having a reduction in benefits or a complete loss of benefits if they make certain decisions in life. Because those fears, those concerns are definitely justified just based on how our application and eligibility systems work. And so we want people to know and feel a little bit more comfortable about making those decisions and knowing what to do as they go down that career path and that education path. And ultimately, we want people to be fully informed. There's lots and lots and lots of myths and misconceptions out there about how work and school interact with the person's benefits. And we want to get rid of those myths and misconceptions. And so I'm going to give you the resources to be able to kind of navigate those and help me bust them as you guys go through this as well. So what does all of that mean? Well, there are some questions that you can have with your benefits counselor. And this is just what I thought might be your top questions. There could be questions that you have that I didn't put in these 5 bullet points. I just picked and chose. So the first one is, if you have a question about, I'm going to go to school, or my child's going to go to school and they're going to work part-time and they're going to take X amount of credit hours, how does that employment affect their SSI? Or maybe how does that employment affect their application for SSI? Same thing with SSDI. What about food stamps? What does that look like now? And then how does that progress into the future? And we write written plans that map that out for individuals. So that's a conversation that you might have with a benefits counselor. Another one is, we've already talked about, some scholarships and ways to help pay for school, grants, those types of things. How do those things affect benefits? I was going to go into a little bit more detail about all of that for tonight, but I could take the hour and a half to do it. So, and then it gets really sticky. What I would encourage you to do is, as you're going through and looking at what those options are, make sure you have that benefits counselor, you're either getting connected with one, or you have one on speed dial to say, hey, this is what we're coming up with. Now let's talk about how do we need to manage that money? How do we need to spend it so it doesn't affect the income sensitive programs like SSI, like food stamps, and a few others? What about living on campus? If you're living on campus, and SSI is meant to pay for things like room and board, your housing, your food on your table, and you're not paying for that directly because you have student aid that's paying for that, or your parents are helping you pay for that. What does that look like? Are there ways to set that up so you don't take a hit on the SSI payment? And there's certain types of aid that don't affect the SSI payment when those things are set up. So those are questions, again, to have with your benefits counselors, and you can get specific about your situation that way. I get this question isn't so much connected to going to college, but I get this question a lot from parents. And that's, what happens to my child and my child's eligibility for benefits if I retire, or if I become disabled myself, or what if my spouse and I pass away, or what if I pass away? What does that do to my child's benefits or their eligibility overall for benefits? Super important questions to tackle before something like that happens. And we're able to do that. And then, like I said, I'm going to get a little bit more into ABLE accounts, and those are questions you can ask your benefits counselor. So first of all, what is an ABLE account? We talked about that, so you have an idea now. And then, what does it do? Does it protect my benefits? Does an ABLE account make sense for me? What about some other ways that our family might save money or put money away for our child. What does all of that look like? So we can get into all of that. And like I said, not an all-inclusive list of questions, but some key ones that you might think about having. Where's my... There we go. I'm like, I can't get it to click over. All right. So this is a little bit more about ABLE accounts. And we covered this already, but ABLE accounts are a way to save money and not have the money that you're saving affect your eligibility for resource or means tested or resource sensitive programs. Those include SSI, which is supplemental security income. They include Medicaid. They include applying for federal student aid. They include several housing programs that are funded at the federal level and even the state level, food stamps, and there's others out there too, low-income energy assistance, childcare, several ones that are very income sensitive or resource sensitive. And when I say income and resources, I mean the money that you have available to you to spend on stuff. So if you've got, for example, with SSI, more than $2,000 in a savings account, you're probably not going to continue to be eligible for SSI. You're not going to be determined eligible in the first place. And so we have to watch that stuff as we're going to school, as we're earning more money, those types of things. And so ABLE accounts is a way around that, a legal way around that. It's a way to save more than that $2,000 resource limit. Right now, this is a national number, you can save up to $17,000 per year in an ABLE account. You can max it out at $100,000. And that $100,000 does apply to SSI purposes. So in many states, you can actually save more than that in an ABLE account, but only up to $100,000 keeps you eligible for SSI. So for example, in Colorado, you can actually have an account balance in your ABLE of up to $500,000. And those are variable by state. Some states are as low as $235,000. Some are as high as $500,000. So again, that's variable by state, but anything over $100,000 would then start counting for those means tested programs that I just listed. All right. Shana and Elisa already mentioned it, but disability, it has to have started prior to age 26. You don't have to apply for or open an ABLE prior to 26. You just have to have that disability and prove that it started before age 26. Now, I will let you know that January of 2026, so we've got a few years, unfortunately, but a law was recently passed on the federal level that's going to move that age to 46. So after that, you'll just have to prove that your disability started prior to 46. So if you have younger individuals and you're going to be thinking about an ABLE account in the next couple of years, then this is an update to know about. Now, how can you get money into that ABLE account? Family, friends. If you have a special needs or a pooled trust, you can roll it over into the ABLE account. If you have a 529 college plan, you can roll it over. And those can all contribute to that ABLE account. And the money can be spent ultimately to improve health, independence, or quality of life. The acronym ABLE stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. So you can spend the money to achieve a better life experience. So that opens up the doors pretty wide on what the money can be spent on. And education, of course, is one of those. What ABLE accounts are not, because I get these questions or I run across these misconceptions pretty regularly. ABLE accounts are not a way to shelter work income. I always get the question, so if I have my employer auto deposit my work check into my ABLE account, that means it won't affect my benefits? No, it doesn't work like that. If you have work income, it's still going to affect your benefits. But it just means that now you can take that work income and save it and go over the $2,000 resource limit that I talked about. If you are not on SSI or SSDI benefits, you could still qualify for an ABLE account. You do have to meet that age of onset requirement. So right now, being disabled prior to age 26, you also have to meet what is considered a Social Security's definition of what's called significant functional limitation. That's typically something you go through during the application process for Social Security benefits. You don't have to go through that process to qualify for ABLE. You're going to have to show that outside of going through that process, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. And then on top of meeting that definition by Social Security, you also have to have a letter of certification from a licensed physician. If you're on SSI or SSDI, you're automatically eligible to open an ABLE account. So not everybody that has a disability can have an ABLE account. You also don't have to open an ABLE account in the state that you live in. It was Shane or Elise that mentioned earlier, possibly all 50 states have ABLE accounts. I believe it's all 50. If not, it's pretty darn close. And you want to compare ABLE accounts and what works best for you, because some of them have higher fees. Some of them you have to pay for more transactions. In Colorado, it can be good if you're a resident here to open one here, because we newly have some state income tax deductions now for money that's put into the ABLE accounts. And Colorado also no longer allows for what's called the Medicaid clawback. And what happens is if somebody passes away and they've been on Medicaid, Medicaid has first right to kind of recoup the money they've spent on you. And so that's the clawback. They can claw back their money. Well, they can't do that in an ABLE account. So if there's money in an ABLE account, it's not going to go to Medicaid. It's going to go to who you designate it to. So those are just some other pieces about ABLE accounts that are good to know. Here's some resources that go ahead, Gretchen.
So I'm sorry, I think I just missed it. Is the clawback thing just in the Colorado ABLE?
It is in other states.
Okay, so I should check.
Yeah, you should check.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you're in Washington and you open a Colorado ABLE account, you can do that, but the clawback will not apply to you because Medicaid is state run. And so it's specific to state. I know. Otherwise a lot of people come to Colorado, right, to get their ABLE. So yeah, you want to check your state if you're Medicaid funded, because it's all state run. All right, so here's some resources that you'll get. And there's the ABLE National Resource Center, and they have all kinds of tools on the National Resource Center. You can compare state to state. You can compare, do I want a special needs trust or a pooled trust, or do I want to do ABLE? They have all kinds of resources there. And so I think they're a great resource. And they also do webinars all the time on ABLE. They're all free. If you want to know about Colorado ABLE accounts, the link is there as well. Special needs trusts and pooled trusts are a way to shelter larger, or save, I should say, larger amounts of money. Remember, ABLE accounts, you can only put in $17,000 a year. So special needs trusts come in handy if it's going to be more than $17,000 in an annual year. Then you may want to have it put into one of these types of trusts. I put one resource in here for Colorado. There's more resources than this. I just picked one that was local. Colorado Cross Disability Coalition has some funding to work around special needs trusts. I put their link here. They have a couple of attorneys that kind of specialize in this. They have great information. And if you want more resources beyond them, just shoot me an email and I'll send you a full resource list. Or I can give that to Elise and Shana to include with this too. Don't let me forget, you guys. And then the last link is actually through the ABLE National Resource Center, but it's a comparison chart on all of those things and what's going to work best for my family to save money for my kid to not only go to college, but to have savings and money available to them that won't affect their eligibility for those special or those income sensitive programs. All right. There are also work incentives. Work incentives are what the name says, they're incentives to work. And they're available to students. And I picked a couple of specific student ones. There's way more work incentives than one we'll talk about tonight, and your benefits counselor will definitely know all of those. Two specific ones. One is called the student earned income exclusion. That's for someone on SSI. And they could go out and earn just under $9,000 a year and have all of it not count. Like Social Security pretends that it's not there. They have to be under the age of 22. So if they're an older kiddo going to school, they won't qualify. But They have to be under 22 and they have to meet the definition of being a student. There's a Social Security specific definition of student, but you can access that. It's online in some resources that I'm going to give you. And you can also talk to your benefits counselor about that. There's also the PASS plan, which is a plan to achieve self-support. This is another way to save income towards going to school and other things, or any other path that's going to get you to working. It's going to help you if your student is working, or a kid's working, and they put their work income into a PASS plan to be able to go to school, whether that's let's say it's through the IN program, then that money is not counted as work income. So it's a great way, if you know that's in the plan and your student is working, then look at PASS plan, because it's just another way to save money, not have it affect the SSI payment. And you can also get fancy with PASS plans and shelter SSDI. I'll throw that in there. You can use that to pay for school through this plan. Great way to get Medicaid access too. So I'll go off in the weeds if I'm not careful. So just know you've heard it. You can talk to your benefits counselor and say, hey, I want to know if the PASS plan looks good for my situation. The last link I've given you here is for something called the Social Security Red Book. This is all about all of the work incentives, including the 2 listed here, that anyone can use when they're on Social Security, SSI or SSDI benefits, and how those work incentives work. Your benefits counselor is going to know about them. And if you want to learn more, it is a Social Security publication, but it's actually, for a government publication, pretty well written. And so it's all online, free to access. All right. I find the time here. Okay, so how do you access benefits counseling? This is where I'm going to fly through slides, because this is where we get kind of technical and lots of government jargon. But ultimately, this is how individuals in Colorado access benefits counseling. And Gretchen, you're going to have one of these ways that applies to you as well, and possibly more than one. I know a little bit about Washington, not a lot. I've worked with them in the past, but it's been many years. So I'll tell you where to start for yours as well.
Awesome. I have to go yell at my child. Anyway, I've been starting to talk to DVR. So thank you.
Yeah, start there. And then for you, look up your work incentive planning and assistance program. It's in all 50 states and the territories, and it's available to individuals on SSI and SSDI benefits. So look up, just Google it.
Okay, sweet.
And then, yeah, when you get this slide deck, there'll be an 800 number you can call as well if you want to start that way.
Okay, thanks. Bye, everyone.
You're welcome. Bye. Thanks for coming. All right, so for Colorado, DVR, which we've already talked about, WIPA, Work Incentive Planning and Assistance, which we'll briefly touch on. And then also we can access benefits counseling in our state through 2 of our Medicaid waiver programs, which is kind of connected back to those community center boards that we talked about earlier. And then tonight, we're not going to talk about the last 2 ways to access benefits counseling, just because we're going to get into the weeds if we do that. So all the information is here. So DVR, it's free. Ask your ask your DVR counselor for benefits counseling services. If they say we can't authorize for it, then shoot me an email. I'm happy to work with you and with them to talk about how they pay for that and what that looks like in their system. Not a lot of confusion on it there, but some. You don't need to be on SSI or SSDI to access it. Just if you're on benefits and you're going through DVR, get benefits counseling. Simple as that. The work incentive planning and assistance, it's free in all 50 states because Social Security pays for it. But because Social Security pays for it, it means you have to be on SSI or SSDI, and you have to be at least age 14 and prior to age 64. So pretty wide range, age range there. In our state, it's Ability Connections of Colorado, and there's the 1-866 number is a national number, but you can call that number to ultimately get connected. The people on the other end of that, they're in a call center. They'll walk you through that and get your information referred to our Colorado program, and then they'll give you a call. So that's another way to access benefits counseling. And then the third way that we're briefly touching on today is through our waivers. Waivers are programs that are funded by Medicaid that give you an extra set of services beyond regular Medicaid. We call them HCBS waivers, home and community-based services, blah, blah, blah. Like I said, government jargony. But we have 2 waivers in Colorado, our supported living services and our developmental disabilities Medicaid waivers. If you know that your kid's on those, or maybe they're transitioning to that, they're not 18 yet, you can access benefits counseling on those 2 waivers. And so you just have to contact the case manager and say, hey, I want those services. If you have the question on if we access those services where they count towards what's called the SPAL, the service plan limitation, it does not count. So it won't count towards the amount of dollars that Medicaid can spend on you on these programs. So, and if you haven't heard of that, then just disregard that I said it. Just call your case manager. All right, so there's Ticket to Work. We're skipping over that, and we're skipping over the private pay and other pay options. Just know, ask these questions to yourself if you want to access benefits counseling. First question, is your student or is the job seeker currently eligible for or are in the process of applying for DVR? If yes, then ask your DVR counselor for benefits counseling services. If that's a no, then ask the question, is the student or the job seeker, are they a current member on one of these Medicaid waivers? And if you're on the waiver, you're going to know you're on the waiver because of the services that you're getting and all the paperwork that you get. If the answer is yes, then contact your waiver case manager and ask for benefits planning services. They use a little bit different terminology right now, but they're going to get it when you say that, when you say benefits counseling or benefits planning. You don't have to ask these questions or answer them to yourself in any particular order, but those are the first 2 to ask. The third one is, okay, no, they're not connected to DVR. No, they're not connected to one of those waivers. Then ask, is that job seeker currently eligible for SSI or SSDI benefits? If you're not sure, do they get money each month from the Social Security Administration? It's labeled like that when the auto deposit goes in the account. So if it's from the Social Security Administration, then they're on a benefit. And the answer is yes. And then you can use our Colorado WIPA, Work Incentive Planning Assistance Program. And then there's that 1-866 number again. So those are the first 3 questions that I encourage you to ask if you want to get connected. And if it's no to all of those, then we need to look at some of those other options that we're not covering tonight. But we can help you get connected. You can always call any provider on a tool that I'm going to give you tonight called a benefits counseling guide. It's all about benefits counseling, and it's available online through several different places it's housed. And so I'll get you connected to that as well. All right. The next thing I want to talk about is Colorado Disability Benefits 101. This is a URL. It's a website, co.db101.org. It's in 11 states now, soon to be 12. We were the 10th state to get it. And it's been up and running for a couple of years in Colorado, but it's a great tool specific to our state. And it's a great place to go to start an employment conversation. It's start an education conversation, and get connected to a bunch of different resources right through that website. You can explore work interaction, how work interacts with the benefits that you're specifically on. You can learn how to save money. You want to know even more about ABLE accounts. There's lots of ABLE account information and links on there. If you want to know, I'm not so worried too much about my SSI payment, but what about my healthcare options? What if my employer offers healthcare coverage? All of that you can learn on this site. And ultimately, you can also get connected with the benefits counselor through the site as well. I'm going to show you a little bit about DB 101 and where to learn more here in a couple of slides. And that's a video I'm going to show you. I forgot to put that up there. Okay, so I just mentioned this, a benefits counseling guide. This is available through our Colorado Office of Employment First website. It's available through DB 101, which I'm about to show you live. And it's a great place to go to learn all about benefits counseling. What are benefits? What do you expect? And the best part is probably that all of the names of the people in our state that provide the service are on this guide, or almost all of them, I should say. And it's gonna also tell you who provides services through DDR, who provides services through WIPA, through Ticket to Work, through all of these things that we just talked about on how people access. How are those programs accessed, and what does that look like? All right. There's also some easy to read benefits counseling infographics that are more picturesque. So if you're the individual that you're working with, or your kiddo doesn't quite want to see all of 5 pages worth of benefits counseling information on that guide, this is a real simple way to talk about what benefits planning is. And so I've got the URL here for you as well. All right. These are also the rest of this. These slides are just more links to more information about Social Security related topics. I'm going to just leave that information for you to explore. If you have any questions about what you're going to learn there or what it is, then just let me know. I'm happy to help you with that. And with that, I'm going to show you Disability Benefits 101. All right, so this will finish up my chat this evening, but this is the website. If I can get there we go. This is the live website. You can go on, create your own account. I have my own account, and all I do is go sign in, but you can also register. And the benefit to doing that is as you run across articles, information that maybe you don't have time to read now, but you want to read later, it will save all of it for you. You create your own personal MyDB 101 account. So I'm going to play a 2-minute video for you on what DB 101 is. It'll give you an idea, and then we'll take questions and look at what we've got left for time.
Welcome to Colorado Disability Benefits 101, co.db101.org. DB 101's articles and tools, in English and Spanish, can help you make informed choices about benefits and work. DB 101's Work and Life section helps you explore how a job can improve your life. Articles give strategies to help you find work, live in the community, and manage the money you earn. DB 101 benefits planning estimators let you put in numbers from your own situation and add a work plan. DB 101 does the math and shows how much your income would go up in your plan, what health coverage you'd have, and if you'd qualify for Health First Colorado's buy-in program for working adults with disabilities. DB 101's Programs section presents programs like Health First Colorado, Medicaid, Medicare, Supplemental Security Income, SSI, and Social Security Disability Insurance, SSDI. Articles explain program rules, show how they support work, have example stories, answer frequently asked questions, and include interactive mini-tools. With a free account, you can mark pages and tools as favorites and save your estimator sessions. Go to MyDB 101 to see them. Anywhere on DB 101, just use the help icon at the lower right of the page to see a directory of experts who can help you. Explore everything Colorado DB 101 offers and see how it can help you at co.db101.org.
All right, so that's the website, and that video is on the website, as you can tell, so you can watch it over and over if you want, or share it with others. And if you're ever in the website and you feel overwhelmed, just click that Get Help button, get to an expert. This is where you're going to get to a certified benefits counselor. This is going to take you right to finding a certified benefits counselor. This is the benefits counseling guide. So it's all there for you. And I know I'm kind of flying through it, but it's a great way to get started, great way to have conversations. And we encourage you to share it with everyone you meet too. So with that, I will stop screen share. The last part of the slide deck that you'll get from me has all about my office and how to connect with us. So if you want to learn more about Employment First in Colorado, employment in Colorado for people with disabilities, or you want to know more about benefits counseling, connect with us. We have a newsletter. You can sign up. There's a QR code and it's a quick sign up. So if you want to get connected with us, it's a great way to stay up to date on all things that are going on there. And the in program, we're connected with them pretty closely. And so they share our stuff every now and then and vice versa. So with that, I will turn it back over and see if there's questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Melanie. All right. Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So we know that that's a lot. We've gone over a lot in the last hour and 15 minutes. And we recognize that. We want to just sort of remind you that these are just sort of different avenues and not everything is right for every family. Shannon is going to introduce our last resource here briefly.
Yeah, so this is a connection to a special needs financial planning organization. So New York Life, Lucas Bithby, he specifically works with families with specific needs or special needs. And if you want to, this is his contact, so you can reach out to him directly. He knows about inclusive higher education, the families that we work with. And you can always ask him direct questions. But if you hop to the next slide, Elise, this is a free webinar for you. And it's with that Cross Disability Coalition. They're partnering together to share just some resources and avenues for families to save and think more holistically about their financial picture. And the reason why we bring that up in this conversation is because we want to resource you all with as many ways as possible to save over time so that you feel like if you're to send your student to college, that you have these backup options to be able to fund that for however many years they're there. So I know at the beginning of our presentation, we talked more about here's some ways with the FAFSA and scholarships and DVR that can chip away directly at that immediate college cost. But these are also ways that we want you to consider long-term financial planning for your students so that you have the whole picture. And so again, with what Elise said, we know that it can be really overwhelming, but at the end of the day, today, what I want you guys to know is that there's lots of options. And so it shouldn't feel, I never want the financial piece to be the barrier or the only hindrance for sending a student with ID to college and helping them pursue those goals. I think there's so many ways to chip away at this big cost. And so this is another resource for you guys coming up next week if you guys want to check that out. And then if there are specific questions that are coming up for you all, I'm happy to connect you with a couple of our parents that have sent their students through college when they were looking at it and thinking, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if this is financially feasible, and what they've learned in that process. I think they're so eager to share that journey. And so send me an email and I'm happy to just connect you organically with some of those moms or dads, just so you can see that once all this information settles, there is a way to put it into practice and put it into play to really make this dream for your student a reality.
And I'll throw in a plug, just hearing this resource, which I need to add obviously to my bag of tricks as well. But because I've seen it happen with families, is when you're doing the financial planning or you're doing special needs trust, things like that, is absolutely make sure that you're working with an attorney that specializes in special needs, or they may miss some of the fine-tuned things that have to happen for it truly to be a special needs trust, or for the money in that trust to truly not count towards some of those income tested programs that I mentioned earlier. And because I've seen families think that they did it correctly, and when it came down to it, it wasn't the case. And it ends up being a really not great situation to deal with. So yeah, definitely make sure that's a connection that you make.
Thanks, Melanie. All right. And then lastly, we just have a handful of other resources just to provide you. So we have our own resources page on our website. It is brief, but it has lots of other links to other places on there. Think College also has a huge webpage. And if I didn't say this earlier in the webinar, Think College is a national resource hub for inclusive higher ed programs, and they have tons and tons of resources. Many of them have been linked throughout this presentation, but they just have so many more than I could possibly link in here. So I definitely encourage you to check that out. And then I did say that I was going to put in links to all the individual programs in Colorado. Clicking things. So here they are. And again, those do go right to their financial pages just because that's the theme of this webinar, but from there you can get to everything else you need in those programs. And then we also have like a one-page PDF that we can help you out with. And if you click that, you can download that as well.
And that PDF really quickly, it just addresses those resources that we talked about earlier in the presentation. So a quick link to that FAFSA, quick link to scholarships, CCBs, and DDR, which are those key resources that we send students to pay for college.
Perfect. And then lastly, this is just kind of other resources that IN provides. These are not necessarily financially related. These are just kind of other ways that you can stay connected with us. So there's another link to our webinar series there, which was also at the beginning of this, our website, our mentorship program, which is well underway now, but we're doing it again in the spring. So if you want your student to meet with current college students with ID and some of our graduates, we have a virtual mentorship program where they can just kind of learn what it's like to have an ID and be in college, as well as signing up for our newsletter, and all the fun stuff is there. So with that, are there any last questions about paying for college? And again, I know this is a very overwhelming topic.
I have one. It's a little bit specific, but I've been connected with a benefits counselor through myadvancedbenefits.org. Is that the same as Melanie, the benefits counselor you're talking about? Should I be seeking out additional benefits counseling?
Yeah, so was her name Janelle?
Yes.
Yeah, she's a certified benefits counselor. She's one of the individuals listed on that benefits counseling guide, and she's very good. So you're connected.
Okay.
Awesome. Anything else? Anything at all? All right, then with that, I'm just going to sort of remind you, when you leave this meeting, you'll get a screen that looks just like this one. It'll automatically pop up if you just hit that continue button. Very short survey just to help us improve in the future. And this particular this particular webinar, this financial webinar, we like to do repeatedly because this is one that is always important. So in particular, your feedback would be super helpful for this one. And if you can think of any other questions or anything at all, we're always here.